Welcome to Creature Guide Live Daily News. For those of you that don't know, my name is Ethan. Today we're getting into marine reptiles as well as other species of dinosaurs and deer over in Kazakhstan. So we're streaming on both Rumble, YouTube, and Kick. Let's take a look at what's going on in the Mesozoic from Sci News. New species of ornithopod dinosaur identified in Texas. So, a new genus and species of small bodied ornithopod dinosaur has been described from a partial jawbone unearthed in Texas, the United States. So, I'm
Is there
wondering,
another Texas?
not that I know of. Well, no. So let's see. It seems to be that we have some bipedal species of ornithopod. Now, granted, this is a decent looking animatronic type of a reconstruction. It looks similar to like different species of heterodontosaurs from the Jurassic as well as the early Cretaceous, and to a case like possibly even like dryosaurs or even later species of ornithopods like Oreodromius. But it's quite distinct from larger species of ornithopods like the earlier iguanodontids, such as Camptosaurus from North America, even like the later species over in Europe, Asia, Africa, and they would eventually reach South America as well. But apparently, this is a species from North America and specifically Texas. We don't have many species of ornithopod that we discover over in Texas in different Cretaceous or even Jurassic sediments. They were not around during the Triassic period, so before 201 million years ago. And this would also include a wide variety of different lineages of dinosaurs. They wouldn't evolve, or at least their very primitive ancestors, until around the beginning of the Jurassic, somewhere around 201 million years ago, called the um, Megacephalians. If you're referring to, well, that would be including like the Pachycephalosaurs and then also the Ceratopsians to an extent. But the Ornithischia lineage of dinosaurs, which would include the ornithopods, doesn't really start showing their small ancestors until the beginning of the Jurassic. So, Ampelognathus coheni lived during the mid Cretaceous period around 96 million years ago, along the shore of a shallow seaway that divided North America into east and west landmasses at the time. Okay, so apparently the picture was representing another species of dinosaur, the Contosaurus intrepidus. But in this instance, we have a species of ornithopod arriving during the mid Cretaceous period. So just before different mass extinctions that would include different species of sauropods, different types of ornithopods, and theropods as well would have occurred. Okay, let's bring up Saurolophus. So, Saurolophus. Okay, so this animal would have existed over in Mongolia
Is this
around
the animal?
oh, okay. Yeah, when it comes to Saurolophus, it did have a somewhat small crest-like structure towards the back of its skull, but not like a happy birthday hat or something similar to like an ice cream cone. I can't think of what else to, or you could even say like certain ice age rhino horns to an extent, like if you're referring to the woolly elasmotherium. But this animal would have been much smaller and also not in a horn-like structure either, but also towards the very back of the skull. So well, okay, looking at the rest of the morphology, it seems somewhat decent, though. I can't tell too much in this instance, but the fingers on the forearms seem a bit too separated.
Wait, I have one with an infection.
Should be more in like a hoof-like structure. Okay. Yeah, this one I would say is even further off. It's like somebody took an Montosaurus and then gave it a large bloated sac towards the top of like the upper maxilla of the skull. and then gave an even elongated horn. Um, yeah, so that's pretty far off. It is definitely possible that animals like Saurolophus would have contained like certain sacs to help attract mates and intimidate males during the rut or the breeding season. But this horn-like structure definitely wouldn't have occurred.
Wait, we got a funny comment. It it says it was the head T-Rex never existed, you got lied to. It's the head of an alpha draconian,
Draken?
a dragon. They have been lying.
Yeah. Um, it's a very um, it's a very Holocene epoch joke. Okay, so you could even try to have certain Neanderthals back in the Pleistocene. You might have even had Eurasian cave lions or Smilodon saber-toothed cats during the Ice Age claim that dinosaurs weren't real either. Even though their ancestors back in the Mesozoic were doing everything they could to stay alive and prevent from being eaten by, dromaeosaurs, pterosaurs, stomped for sport. So there's yeah, it's been going on for at least hundreds of thousands of years, that specific claim. Um, but we have a lot of evidence that proves them wrong. And those Neanderthals were traders too. So focusing on the Mesozoic era,
Neanderthals are traitors. That was funny.
also the foot of that specific Saurolophus was fairly far off.
Oh, sorry.
Um, we should have we should have it where there are 3 fingers, and duck-billed dinosaurs did not have thumbs. This is around the time when some of the earliest species of Hadrosauridae would have evolved, and also more specifically, members of Saurolophinae, including Saurolophus or the species from Mongolia. There is also a much smaller species inhabiting Alberta, Canada, slightly later into the Cretaceous. This would be somewhere around 80 to 81 million years ago during the early Campanian stage of the Cretaceous. Okay. Um, I'd say the ecosystem, though, in this picture does not seem far off, depending on what area of Mongolia you were roaming in during about 80 million years ago in the Cretaceous. It would have been quite lush, though there were deserts as well. Okay, now let's head to the other.
It keeps saying things about the dragons and then that, you've been lied to.
Like there were more. Were
They're
there?
all dragons, and when the truth comes out, you
Um.
well, you've only been studying this stuff for 20 years, I mean,
Well, there were also probably, what, giant tooth whale megalodon. We probably had certain megalodon traders that were also claiming that as well, because well, they were in the ocean and they never saw them.
well, megalodon was actually a tuna.
Um, yeah, that's very far off in the family tree. Um, anyway, uh, okay, so this specific animal is not Saurolophus. It is a close relative because it is also a member of Saurolophinae.
Oh,
This is Parasaurolophus walkeri. There are also a couple of other different species of Parasaurolophus that have been discovered. But Parasaurolophus walkeri did not come into contact with the Mongolian species of Saurolophus. It possibly came into contact with a smaller species, but then again, it might not have evolved yet. This animal was roaming Alberta, Canada around 75 million years ago, and also a completely different morphology compared to Saurolophus. Um, so Saurolophus, okay, this is a very intact specimen or skull of Saurolophus. I don't I believe this is one of the intact specimens. It comes from certain formations over in Mongolia. And this animal, as you can see, has very distinct hadrosaur like teeth. So this animal would have had hundreds of teeth inside of its mouth, and there were not any towards the front of the skull either. So whether you're looking at like the bottom cranial area or the post-maxillar region of the skull, it was simply completely devoid of teeth. The beaks would have simply been used to strip vegetation and then grind it. These were some of the most efficient chewers to exist in the herbivore lineage of dinosaurs. You did have certain species earlier in the late Cretaceous as well as the early Cretaceous period and even the late Jurassic to an extent that had a very efficient chewing ability, but not to the extent of the hadrosaurs that would evolve. around 83 million years ago. The same thing would have occurred with different species of ceratopsians at this point, but they weren't as efficient of chewers. They were better than the brachiosaurs, or you could even say the sauropods in general, titanosaurs, who didn't really have the ability to chew in general, just simply stripping off leaves and swallowing them whole. But this species, genus Saurolophus, as you can see, it has a small horn or crest-like structure towards the back of its skull, and it might have slightly or probably did increase in length when you would add an extra layer of keratin, but it was fairly small. And it is quite interesting as to this specific lineage of Saurolophini having a smaller type of a crest compared to Parasaurolophus, for instance.
Wait, is this Saurolophus?
It can be. This might be. It could be the larger species. They're definitely showing it with a much larger crest. I wonder if we found a specimen recently showing or indicating a much longer crest.
It's a Sci News article.
It might be referring to the smaller species. Possibly the smaller species over in Alberta has a longer crest. Um,
It's a 15 article, though.
it certainly is possible. The Mongolian species has been known for decades. But when it comes to also Saurolophus, as you can tell, this animal had much longer hind legs compared to its forelimbs. And even when referring to other members of Hadrosauridae, even when you're looking at members of Lambeosauridae, which is a separate subfamily of Hadrosauridae, such as Edmontosaurus, who else? Lambeosaurus, Corythosaurus, Tizantiosaurus. They also have much longer hind limbs compared to their forelimbs, but not to the same extent.
Ma
Saurolophus.
Matthew said they had killer lips.
Um, True. If you're referring to the beaks of these animals, yes, they were very capable of easily killing a dromaeosaur, possibly certain larger pterosaurs, like at this point, certain as darkids, though larger species such as Quetzalcoatlus have not evolved yet. But you still might have had smaller species that could have posed a threat to their hatchlings, and they could have easily have killed these um, 50 to maybe 150-pound individuals, or weighing somewhere between 20 to maybe somewhere around 80 kilograms. Also, when it comes to even Tyrannosaur hatchlings, you could have had it where these animals intentionally were attacking and trying to just kill off a certain lineage of predators, so that way they wouldn't have to be as concerned for, or their young would be in less danger. Not sure if they would necessarily be any less concerned about them. But besides that, this animal is an herbivore. It was simply feeding on different species of flowers, a wide variety of different ferns in the region, probably not focusing on different species of conifer trees. The hadrosaurs, also judging by the stomach contents we have found from different species like Brachylophosaurus, which is not a member of Saurolophini, belongs to a different lineage of Hadrosauridae. And as well, I believe Parasaurolophus and Montosaurus too. These animals were likely just feeding on species of plants that were closer to the ground, or at least ground level, possibly feeding on different species of shrubs. They did have to be concerned, especially Saurolophus, about different species of tyrannosaurs. But around 80 to 81 million years ago, I believe it's a bit of a mystery as to what specific carnivore would have been hunting Saurolophus, considering Tarbosaurus has not evolved yet. And Tarbosaurus was the species of large tyrannosaur that inhabited Mongolia around 71 to 72 million years ago. So that is a bit of a mystery. Um, what was the other thing? I guess let's go back to the article.
Wait, wait.
Even though we technically are about 15 to 16 million years when referring to Saurolophus, from the current animal that they discovered. Also, this looks to be a completely different lineage of ornithopods in general compared to Saurolophus. I really like this reconstruction of Saurolophus. This is from the um, one of the following films to the 1999 series Walking with Dinosaurs, but it's from Chased by Dinosaurs, the episode The Giant Claw with Nigel Marvin. and it is a bit out of date. The animal has, I think, a bit too short of hind limbs compared to its body size. Also, the tail should be a bit longer as well.
Adrian Rojo says, "Hi."
Hello there, Archosaur. When it comes to Saurolophus, also the horn-like structure should be a bit longer as well. Now, when it comes to also the skull structure in general, I think it's a little too long for Saurolophus. Um, I don't know exactly what they were basing it off of. Maybe Trachodon, possibly another species of Hadrosaur, but a bit distantly related to Saurolophus. It's also from North America. This would be Mongolia, and you probably wouldn't find Saurolophus out in the middle of the desert unless it happened to be chased or being chased by a certain carnivore. But the question is, what carnivore would that be? Even then, it would probably stick to the forest to some extent.
Wouldn't it need food?
Well, that's the other major thing is that it needs. I mean, we're talking about an animal. I said 8 tons, I think earlier. It's likely this animal could have weighed somewhere around 12 to 13 tons when looking at the size of this hadrosaur. Um, I'm guessing it's probably having to intake at least somewhere between 700 to 800 pounds of food a day, or maybe pushing somewhere around 3 to 350 kilograms, really consisting of different species of ferns and flowers. Besides that, I think the pattern looks really good. It's kind of matching with the environment, but also would be inhabiting a more lush ecosystem. The darker coloration of the drawing would probably be a bit closer.
I just can't get past that. It looks like it has a giant infection.
I think if it did have this, because there doesn't seem to be any evidence looking at the overall skull morphology for this animal having a bloated sac, at least in the upper part of the skull, maybe towards the throat region. It is certainly possible with Saurolophus. But besides that, well, also that these long horns would not have existed. Actually, don't mind that forested look. So the mid Cretaceous marked a time of great change in North American terrestrial ecosystems. It certainly did. It was a bit barren in some instances, especially after around 100 to 105 million years ago, and definitely explodes in variety somewhere between 81 to 85 million years ago. Said University of Wisconsin Parkside paleontologist Christopher Noto and his colleagues. Vertebrate species with Asian origins began traversing the newly established connection of Beringia and appear in the North American fossil record. Angiosperms were on their rise to dominance in terrestrial floras, and previously diverse North American groups declined or disappeared from the fossil record. Well, you did have it where different species of stegosaurs, especially if you're looking at over in different parts of Asia, Europe, Africa to an extent, um, technically, they were over in North and South America as well. They're just not as common, especially over in South America. North America, there were a number of species of stegosaurs. So the plated ornithischians of the mid and late Jurassic to the early Cretaceous, dying out somewhere around 105 million years ago. So about 9 million years before this animal appeared. The same would go for different species of allosaurs too. Let's keep going. So the intrusion of the Western Interior Sea during the Cenomanian, around 100.5 to 93.9 million years ago, divided the continent into the landmasses of Appalachia to the east and Laramidia to the west, creating the conditions for independent evolution of the terrestrial biota on each side of the Western Interior Seaway until its large-scale regression in Maastrichtian time. So 72, oh, well, the Maastrichtian stage, 72 to 66 million years ago. Okay, so read this last one and we'll bring up another animal. So Ampelognathus coheni. So the animal they discovered was a member of the dinosaur clade Ornithopoda, or the ornithopod lineage, and was the sister species to the group of ornithopods consisting of Thescelosaurus and Iguanodontia. That would make sense. The Thescelosaurs existed until the very end of the Cretaceous. Um, Okay. Besides that, let's bring up a well, I guess another species of animal. Trying to think. North America around this time. Let's bring up Nothronicus. So Nothrony. Okay, here it comes.
Okay, so there's some feathered and some not feathered.
He possibly was feathered. It seems to be likely with a wide variety of different species of therizanosaurs. This is also a member of the theropod lineage. It is one of the only groups of theropods that became herbivores. Most species of theropods were basal carnivores. Now, Nothronicus, this is seen from the 2011 documentary Planet Dinosaur. And this animal existed over in New Mexico around 90 to 92 million years ago. So this is during the early late Cretaceous. Close to the same time, but still a bit off of this new species ornithopod.
Okay, these guys have totally different mouth structures or beak structures, whatever we call them.
Yeah, this animal, he doesn't look terrible for Nothronicus. Nothronicus does have a very wide rib cage, even compared to many species of herbivorous dinosaurs. But this animal was simply feeding on different species of conifers. It might have gone after different species of ferns, but was probably just focusing on different types of shrubs, considering its overall stature. It was not the largest species of Therizanosaur to exist, despite its depiction of being immense. This animal was probably somewhere around 18 to 20 feet in length, or pushing 5.6 to 6 meters, and probably weighed somewhere around a ton. We're pushing around 2,000 pounds, or a little over 950 kilograms.
I just realized this one's feathered also.
Yeah, slightly. Yeah, it did have feather covering. It just,
It's just not puffy.
yeah, not too much. There probably would be a bit more plumage to it, or just overall, yeah, being much more feather-like. Or I guess you could say furry, even though, this animal did not have, like, mammalian fur. But feathers and hair follicles of mammals do both derive, or they're both different kinds of keratin. And technically, feathers are, highly evolved scales. So when it comes to, Nothronicus, this animal was likely coming into contact with tyrannosaurs such as Zuski tyrannus, which is the animal that the Nothronicus was facing off in the documentary. Um, but outside of that specific tyrannosaur, there were probably, at least at the moment, there doesn't seem to be any other predators that this animal had to be concerned about. Now, what is interesting is this drawing is depicting it munching off of a fruit tree. I think it's a fruit tree. Um, it's very likely that during the late Cretaceous, especially, that animals like therizanosaurs that were probably feeding off of smaller trees, larger shrubs, were probably feeding on different species of tree-bearing fruit, or fruit-bearing trees. And let's see what else. Okay, so when it comes to the claws of this animal, it is a huge debate as to what specifically these immense claws were used for, considering many species of the Therizanosaur lineage had the longest claws compared to their body size. Also, amongst any terrestrial animal in general. Um, these animals could have claws, like, especially when you're looking at the larger species of Therizanosaurs that reach over 3.3 feet in length, or around a meter. Nothronicus did not have claws that reached this length,
You
though.
mean their claws reach that?
Yes.
It sounded like you said the
The animal in general?
yeah.
Oh, no, no, no. It was about 20 feet.
I'm thinking, didn't you just say this thing was huge?
Um, also probably not feeding on any animal protein. Seemed to be a basal herbivore. Also, you look at just simply the overall belly structure. Now, you do have it where certain herbivores today, when you're looking at especially gorillas, do have.
Adrian Rose said, "Could dinosaurs be blind?"
Oh, definitely. In fact, I believe we do have certain evidence of different um dinosaur specimens where the individual ended up losing its eye, at least one of them, during a fight with another species. It does. That was possibly an incident with a certain species of Allosauridae when it was coming to contact with an armored species of dinosaur. I maybe a stegosaur, but it could have been another species as well. It would have possibly have been a certain case when these therizinosaurs were fighting against different tyrannosaurs, even other therizinosaurs in general. They could have lost an eye in fights.
These 2 look freaked out.
They do. This also, if I didn't mention, would have been in New Mexico during the early late Cretaceous. So, as also where Suski tyrannus is from. Also, a ceratopsian called Zuniceratops pretty much coexisted with these animals at around the same time. It was one of the early relatives of the later larger ceratopsids, such as um, Orinoceratops, Anchiceratops, Torosaurus. So, these animals were, at least at this time, one of the largest species of therizinosaurs to exist. Um, Also, another thing. I think also in this depiction, their tails are a bit short. They do have somewhat odd hind limbs, at least when it comes to the overall morphology. You could say in some cases it might resemble a certain later mammalian species, like even I wouldn't say like the calicotheres,
Wait,
but
wait, I
certain
got one.
later mammalian lineages. Whoa. Okay. Um. Well, okay, looking at the rest of it, it's possible. I mean,
He looks like he's
um,
been eating a lot, but, I
yeah,
mean,
I don't.
chickens aren't actually that big, but their puffiness is
Yeah, it's true. And I could say, many of them been bred that way, but even when looking at this specific animal, it certainly is possible it might have had a very puffy like appearance. I don't mind this Therizinosaur. Um he looks friendly.
if you're watching this under the shorts, it's full size is on the normal channel. Pull either, stream up.
Also, when it comes to his arms or like specifically his fingers, it is interesting. It seems pretty realistic. They stop the feathers at the very base of the fingers. I'm guessing this is supposed to represent an Arthronicus.
It
The
is.
claws seem, well, probably around like a realistic length. There is Xenosaurus specifically, which did not coexist with Nothronicus. It also evolved much later in time, had much longer claws compared to its body size. But this still would have made Nothronicus a fairly dangerous animal, whether it's fighting in the rut. Now, we have to be a bit careful when taking into consideration its claws and whether or not they were used for fighting. There have been certain interpretations that this animal might have used its claws to help bring tree branches down to its mouth when foraging, but it doesn't really look like this animal had the capability of reaching beyond its head.
This guy looks like a turkey or
Oh,
something.
yeah. It's a bit of an older reconstruction, probably sometime 1980s or 1990s when this popped up. And it could be an Arthronicus. The claws seem a bit short for a Therizinosaurus. But it is interesting. Even back then, they were still adding um, a huge amount of feathers to this animal. But you still had a wide variety of different reconstructions of certain dinosaurs where they were already adding different feathers. Okay. Let's, I guess, I really like that guy. Um,
These guys just looked hold on, I'm gonna blow them up so people can see their actual faces.
yeah, they looked like they were constantly coming into contact with the Tyrannosaurs or
They look like they haven't slept in a month. They're just like, "Ugh."
yeah, it could have been maybe they came into altercation with the ceratopsians, like Zuniceratops. Even with the ceratopsian that I'm referring to, only reaching somewhere around 14 to 16 feet in length, we're pushing around 4.8 meters. They would still have been extremely aggressive. They're having to deal with tyrannosaurs, and they're somewhat in competition, probably not to a major extent with the Anothronychus. They would be a bad comparison. Maybe certain hadrosauromorphs, but all ceratopsians are just usually depicted as aggressive. Okay, so mostly complete left jawbone. So back to the article. Of the new species was collected from exposures of the Louisville Formation, Woodbine Group along the Grapevine Lake emergency spillway in northern Tarrant County, Texas. Sediments of the Woodbine group, exposed in northeastern Texas, were deposited along the southwestern margin of Appalachia as a series of shoreline distal lowland swamp, lake, and fluvial deposits during a regression. So it's just talking about the different type of soils that they found this animal at of the Western Interior Seaway in early and middle Cenomanian time. So during the Late Cretaceous. The Louisville Formation Upper Woodbine Group preserves the most diverse terrestrial fossil assemblage known from Appalachia, but remains of small ornithischian dinosaurs had been conspicuously absent from it. Dinosaurs in general are not common to find in Appalachia. There have been more species have been found relatively recently, but especially over in different parts of East Texas, depending on where you are over in Arkansas, they are not common. They're rare in general. So this is a very good thing to hear. So according to the team, Ampelognathus coheni is the first small-bodied ornithopod dinosaur discovered from the Louisville Formation. So the significance of this discovery is that it provides a previously missing but predicted element of that ancient ecosystem. Naming a new species is always exciting because it means we're adding new information to science.
And I get to claim that I found something or named it.
Well, yeah, that too. It's probably the biggest part is naming it. Um, what's another thing? In fact, let's bring up another animal. So, Alamosaurus, Alamo. Oh, I think it's named after the Alamo. I know it's a weird assumption, but um, this animal was found over in Big Bend National Park over in Texas, as well as another specific area within the state. And I believe there have been certain specimens found in New Mexico, possibly Colorado. I'd say when it comes to the sauropods that were created in the show Prehistoric Planet, the Alamosaurus, which were existing for like a brief few seconds, were probably the closest to realistic. They also seem to use pretty much a very similar sauropod model for most of the species. Now, you could say that that one species, it's not hitting me at the moment, from Lake Cretaceous, India, was not far off. So that might be a bit closer. But besides that, it still has a lot of issues. I don't mind this sauropod or this Alamosaurus. So, mainly, okay, what's off is that there are stegosaur or nodosaur osteoderms sticking out of the side of its upper tail. There isn't any evidence for any species of sauropod to have had this type of a characteristic. Also, when it comes to the osteoderms towards the upper thigh or the lower back vertebrae of this animal, that's even pushing it for armor. Now, the armored osteoderms around or just above the shoulder blade, around the upper part of the rib cage, even towards the lower part of the neck, it is very possible that certain species of sauropods are likely. In fact, we actually have evidence for different members of Lithostrodiae and specifically Saltosauridae, certain other lineages of titanosaurs that had this type of an armored structure, also covering a much larger part of the animal compared to what's showing this model. But those distinct spikes would not have occurred. Also, there were those osteoderms along the back of the animal. That's a bit of a question with Alamosaurus. Now, let's see. So, Alamosaurus in general is a member of Titanosauridae. But, unfortunately, this is very blurry. Like, I can it's also showing spikes. Okay, now I'm
Si
wondering if we did find evidence for
Cyanide said, "I think a frog and a gopher," I think it's supposed to say gopher, "are in the same family because why else would they use the same letters for their name?"
frog and a gopher. Gopher is Gopher. Also, that's the just standard East Angular English name, um, or American English. But, there's also the genus and Latin specific, species. The genus and species name for those two distinct animals, which are completely different from each other. And then you have to look into specifically the subfamily that those one, the amphibian, and the other, the mammal belongs to. Now, maybe you're being sarcastic, but I'm just saying there are certain people that will try to make it out that frogs and gophers are the same thing. And yes, you could say frogs and or amphibians and mammals both derived from the lobe-finned fish tetrapods of the late Devonian period. But then they branched off into completely different lineages. Um anyway, back to oh,
Then he responds with, "Bro, you're not supposed to answer that question." Seriously. Well, you say something, that's how it works.
anyway, back to the sauropods. Um Okay, I'm kind of wondering if now there is evidence for this animal having elongated spikes along the back of the like upper thighs and in the back of the tail, but that's pretty distinct. We do have certain species of Jurassic sauropods from around 168 to 175 million years ago that have a armored spiked club tail and really just towards the very end of that tail specifically, not along the whole caudal vertebrae or tail vertebrae like with what you would see in different species of certain stegosaurs, nodosaurs, and ankylosaurs that have a wide variety of armor. Doesn't seem to be the case with sauropods. Okay. Oh, Alamosaurus. Let's get to a picture that's not blurry.
Oh, I just liked it.
Yeah, but I can't tell what it's really looks like unless it's clear somewhere else. Um, I wonder if this is referring to that other picture or that other model earlier. I don't know what game or
Wait, here
this
you
could be from. Also, it's showing osteoderms along the bottom of the animal. Well,
go.
this seems to be like it replicates certain depictions of sauropods, like back from the 1960s to an extent. So it also seems to represent more of a diplodocid to a certain extent, not really titanosaurs. Very very thin and narrow, just overall physique, and also osteoderms linking the whole body. There we go. That's a bit better. Everybody's well, besides, putting the osteoderm situation to the side, I will check up on that.
It's on
Th
everything.
Yeah, this looks, pretty good, at least the neck structure, I like it, but the overall core and the size of the legs seem far too small for this animal. So, let's get into depth with, Alamosaurus, or the basics. So, this animal existed over in Western and Central, the United States, possibly I don't think we have any evidence of it being Canada, but, um, reaching somewhere around 75 to 85 feet in length, or pushing somewhere around 20 to 23 meters, and probably weighed she's probably pushing like 25, 26 meters, but probably weighed somewhere around 35 to 40 tons. So practically one of the largest species of sauropods at this point in the late Cretaceous. This is also towards the very end of the Cretaceous in general, around 68 million years ago. It looks like this animal might have coexisted with T. Rex as well as Triceratops, and was likely feeding on different species of tall conifer trees at this point. Okay, well, here we have another one. It seems a bit more even looking at the overall body structure. The neck, at least when it comes to also later Titanosaur species, and what I mean by later is even to some part of the early Cretaceous, like around 120 million years ago, and then up to this point. So, yeah, the neck seems fairly matching with the core of the body. The legs seem okay.
They're even putting it on these.
Yeah, maybe we found some evidence for it. Or maybe distinct elongated osteoderms like the diplodocids, just a bit more robust. Um, yeah, that seems like a bit of a small T Rex compared to an Alamosaurus, but Allosaurus definitely would have dwarfed T-Rex. T-Rex would have to be careful with this species.
Cyanide said, I responded, some of the comments are crazy. He says, I bet. Is there any evolutionary explanation for why so many people are dumber than dinosaurs?
Um, well, especially if you're referring to the sauropods, which it seems to be that the sauropod with the largest brain in terms of weight, not overall volume. I don't know that specifically at the moment, but is Giraffe titan, which is from East Africa or Tanzania, about 153 million years ago. So shortly before Brachiosaurus ultrox would have evolved over in North America. However, it looks like it had a brain weight of about 3 to 400 grams, which is um, around the size of an African lion's in terms of weight. Now, here's the thing. And when it comes to where it's probably focusing all of its power on, when it comes to just the brain in general, it seems to be balanced to a major extent. Now, I need to do some more in depth research. Also, when it comes to many sauropods in general. But beyond that, it does decrease tremendously when it comes to brain weight across
What does that
different
have to
sauropods.
do with people being dumber?
Well, it's just that, depending on the type of mammal that you're looking at, like spotted hyenas have a completely different I think they have a slightly different brain weight compared to lions, but I think a larger volume. Anyway, let me stay on the dinosaurs. Um, there's a lot to, take into account because just because you have a larger, like, in terms of weight, like a heavier brain, does not necessarily mean that there's going to be more, I guess, focus or power into the overall intelligence of the animal compared to maybe the balance. Um, is there another is that too far of an explanation?
He was being funny.
Oh, okay. Alright, yeah, um, yeah, that's still a good question. That has occurred in my mind too. I don't know. I don't think there's a lot of power into maybe there's something about eating ferns to an extent, and it can extend the brain power compared to maybe eating broccoli or, Brussels sprouts, definitely. I would agree with that. Though I might have to check the nutrition content of Brussels sprouts, but I'm not a fan of them. But that's just flavor. Um, hmm. Okay. Oh, wait, we need to head back to the, article. So, where were we? Back to this smaller ornithopod. Um, so, Ampelognathus conii is important because it represents the first small body plant eater to be identified from the woodbine group. Up until this point, we had very few herbivores, and only one of them was a dinosaur. I need to check up on this specific group and the formation that this animal was found in. So it presented something of a mystery. This fossil helps fill in that gap and furthers our understanding of how the terrestrial ecosystem in the woodbine was structured over 95 million years ago. Oh, I mean, it's good to hear that we're having dinosaurs just in general coming from this part of the country, in the state too. Considering it's over in East Texas. You could say, I mean, South Texas, depending on where you are, doesn't get many dinosaurs, and even North Texas over by the Panhandle. Many species come over from certain parts of like Central and Western Texas. Okay, let's head forward to the Cenozoic era, and yes, this time we are going to include the Ice Age, but it's also taking place in modern day too. From from AstanaTimes.com. Kazakhstan restores endangered Bukhara deer population. The Sardara Turkestan State Regional Natural Park in southern Kazakhstan has become the country's only site for restoring the endangered Bukhara deer population. Yes, they look very majestic in this picture.
They don't look like they feel endangered.
No, they actually look quite calm. I will say when it comes to brown bears, specifically over in Kazakhstan, they actually have a decent population. I don't know about the overall genetic variety of it though, but there's somewhere between 3,500 and 4,500 brown bears in all of Kazakhstan. And Kazakhstan is just south of central Russia and also west of Kyrgyzstan and China, Mongolia. So you do have it where there are certain forested regions where you have brown bears, and historically, well, technically, it's starting to. I guess it's already that way again in a small region, but brown bears and Amur tigers would have come into contact with each other. They reintroduced a handful of individual Amur tigers last year and this year. So let's see. When it comes to the Bukhara deer, I don't know about the size of this specific animal. However, if we travel back in time to the Ice Age,
Okay, so then I asked a question, said it just ran off topic, but what's your current understanding of Ultrasource?
oh gosh, that specific animal. At least at the moment, I I need to go back over him. It's been a long time since I've come into contact with that sauropod. I believe a brachiosaur. Um, yeah, I can't say anything about him at the moment. So, when it comes
Oh,
to
I think I heard only a single vertebrae was found.
yeah, he might have been one of those specific, brachiosaurs, sauropods in general, where it's a huge question as to whether or not he's just simply another species of another distinct genus of Brachiosauridae. I mean, we also have had it with different species of titanosaurs where that has occurred as well. Some cases worse, like part of just like, sliver of the bottom jaw or certain teeth. So, yeah, that's all I have with, Ultrasource. I mean, if it would be nice to see if, like, depending on, like, the morphology of that vertebrae, which I don't know if it's caudal or cervical or back vertebrae around the pelvic region, um, like, if there's enough distinctiveness to say that's likely Ultrasource itself. We don't want another Amphisilus situation.
What is
But I
that?
That's another species of sauropod later into the Mesozoic era, but I believe it's just based on certain fragmentary remains, and I don't know if it has been clarified to be another sauropod at the same time.
Wait, is this where you're referencing where they find something, they claim it's a new species, and then it turns out
Yeah, where they want to get their name out there that they named something different. Let's see. Oh, okay. So hold on. Let's check up a little more what's going on with the deer, and then we'll go back in time to the Ice Age. So reintroduction efforts began in 1999 with just 6 animals. Whoa. Since then, the population has grown to 319 deer, according to the park officials. Yeah, that's a lot of genetic variety. Great. Now the question is like how much does inbreeding affect this specific species of mammal? Because certain mammals are less affected by inbreeding than others. But yeah, there's definitely not a lot going on here. Just started from 6 individuals. The Bukhara deer, endemic to Central Asia, historically inhabited forests along the Amu Darya and Sar Darya rivers, as well as the Kizilkum region. By the mid 20th century, the species had nearly disappeared from Kazakhstan. With support from the World Wildlife Fund and zoologists from Almaty and Moscow, Kazakhstan launched its first Bukhara deer restoration initiative along the Sar Darya River in 2000. Um, See, this is what bugs me before I get to the Ice Age, real quick, about the reintroduction efforts with the tigers recently, despite also not putting many tigers in the region. So there's more genetic variety. But you have it where this specific species of deer is only a little more than 300 individuals, and you could have it where the tigers, as well as certain wolves in the region or even brown bears, could quickly wipe it out. So, um, hmm.
uh,
Now,
just to break into this again. Is it possible they misidentified the fossil, or is it reasonable to extrapolate, yeah, it was as being the biggest dino ever from the fossil specimen.
Um, yeah, I think it could be either way, but I think the problem is that specifically, I just need to review over what specific vertebrae they discovered of Ultrasource and see if there's anything distinct about its morphology. Because besides that, I really have no idea.
Is that because there's so many of them that sometimes it's like you have to go back and look at things?
That is true to an extent, but it's also I think that people really just want to name if they can a new species of dinosaur. So, I think it's just taking all these different um yeah, I think both scenarios are likely possible, but I just need to review what's going on or what we found of Ultrasource. Okay, let's head back to the Ice Age. So let's bring up who was it specifically? Oh, Macaridus, the saber tooth.
Why are we doing Ice Age?
Um,
I'm just curious.
I guess give this part of the world a boost in mammalian amazement. So Machirodus. So this is pushing around 200,000, actually no, 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 much further back. Pushing about 2 million years ago during the Ice Age. Well, that's interesting. I guess it's one of those earlier depictions of Macaridus where they thought it was originally just basically a tiger in the region. No, that couldn't be right because Macaridus is not it does not have a long tail compared to its body size. It's fairly short like its distant relatives over in North America, but they wouldn't fall for some time. Actually, I might have to travel a bit further back when it comes to Macaridus. This animal was also likely inhabiting the very end of the Pliocene epoch, somewhere around 2.8 to 3 million years ago. It was much smaller compared to its later descendant, Smilodon. Macaridus is part of Machaerodontidae, which is the lineage of Feliforma, which are basically the cat order of mammals, which would have consisted of all of the placental saber-toothed cats. There are also different species of saber-tooth that some might confuse with like true placental mammals, which would include modern day lions, polar bears, elephants, people, whereas other saber-tooths were members of the marsupial lineage, such as the Thylacosmilids. They're not part of Machaerodontidae, also having a very distinct morphology. You could say like Macaridus to a smaller extent, especially when you look at their bottom jaw structure. The Thylacosmilids also, well, they had a very elongated bottom jaw. And you could say the same thing with certain Nimravid species, but those were placentals. The Thylacosmilids were marsupials, so they were more closely related to the later marsupial lion in quote of Australia, so Thylacoleo, the giant wombats like the Diprotodontids, kangaroos of today, tree kangaroos, the Platygalli's, the little marsupials.
This guy looks like he's a bear.
Um, yeah, I guess you could say to some extent. He does. Oh, I can. Okay, yeah, you're saying by that distinct gait. You could. Macaridus had very long hind limbs compared to its body size, unlike many of its later saber-toothed descendants. Or you could say just the later Machaerodontids. So Smilodon really at this point has not evolved yet. And you have it where later into the Ice Age or the Pleistocene, because you had Macaridus um, hunting like different ancient relatives, or you could say just earlier species of pronghorn or the giraffoids that roam different parts of the United States over in Asia as well as different parts of northern North America. Yeah, this is a pretty good reconstruction of a Macaridus saber-tooth. This animal was maybe reaching somewhere around 80 to um 120 pounds, or somewhere between 35 to 55 kilograms. It was a much smaller species of saber-tooth. Even Smilodon gracilis later on would have dwarfed this animal. Now, you do have it where earlier in time, like back in the Pliocene, even the Miocene epoch, you had much smaller species of saber-tooths compared to Macaridus, even like the Dinofelis over in Pliocene Africa, like over in Tanzania, Ethiopia. It wasn't much larger than a bobcat or even a Canadian lynx, or pushing somewhere around 30 to 40 pounds is pretty big. A Canadian lynx might be pushing that size, but even that's quite large. We're pushing somewhere around 12 to 16 kilograms.
Okay, a little blurry, but I like it.
Yeah, and this is, as you can tell, like the distinct ecosystems of different areas of Asia, possibly into Africa, did Macaridus inhabit. Now, you also, those are larger species. Well, you could say maybe larger by weight to an extent, but they were definitely shorter. Those are earlier species of giraffe in the background as well. I think they're hunting a younger one in the picture. That might be an earlier species of hyena that they're coming to contact with. Could be an earlier species of crocuta. And then you have the earlier rhinos, which migrated from North America, inhabiting this point.
Okay, it says, try to pronounce this. Dinoc Dinoc ugh,
Dinocruta.
yep,
Oh, okay.
challenges a pair of
Yeah, Macaridus. Okay, so it is Dinocruta. This is definitely before the Pleistocene that this is occurring. Um, it's possibly, when it comes to the giraffe species, a relative of Chancytherium. It could be Chancytherium, but I don't know if this specific animal left Africa during the Pliocene epoch. Chancytherium also is a bit on the much shorter side, maybe like 8 to 9 feet in height. They're pushing around 2.7, 2.8 meters. So a bit more of like the okapi in Central Africa, which is essentially a short forest giraffe. Also, when it comes to the coloration of these Macaridus, it's very possible it might have had this type of a pattern to itself, so camouflaging it with the different types of the open plains of Africa as well as Asia, possibly into Europe as well. I think, did I mention earlier, you there were certain species of shorter giraffes that did migrate into like southern Europe as well as Western Asia.
is that accurate?
They never made it into North America. No. No, Macaridus is small, and it didn't have a long tail either. In fact, the only cats that could possibly reach this size is the American lion. Now, you could say that Smilodon populator was probably approaching this size too, pushing around 800 to 900 pounds, or a little over, what, 400 kilograms. Um,
Okay, so Sinai said again, I was doing yard work a couple of weeks ago, and a bear walked up to me only 20 feet away. It was my first time seeing one. Thankfully, the medium-sized black bear wasn't interested in me. Kinda meat,
Kind of what?
the type of meat.
Oh, oh. Um, yeah, I mean, primates aren't their, preferred type of, food, but, no, black bears will still, I mean, go after people, but, yeah, I mean, that's good to hear, and especially the sighting in general. Um, let's see, what is it? June, it's also the breeding season for black bears,
What
so,
state are you in?
you could have it where, he's probably just trying to look, if it's a male, he's looking for females, and also if it's a female without cubs, she's also likely looking for males too.
He's not saying he's looking for you as a female.
Oh yeah, yeah, I was just mentioning that. It's just it's that time of year. Same thing with brown bears as well. It's also the breeding season, and when it comes to polar bears further north, you have it where they're practically at the end of their core seal hunt season. So you can still have it depending on where certain polar bears are on different Arctic seas, that they're also going to be hunting for ringed harp. monk seals. I think they're over in towards the Antarctic. Who is it? Crab eating seals are over in the Antarctic too. So it's just leopard seals are having to be concerned about. It's also practically winter down in Antarctica. Let's see what's going on. Or I'm trying to find what other seals. I said bearded seals will be going after them too. There's like 2 to 3 million bearded seals out the whole Arctic. About 8 million ringed seals. It's a good portion, regardless of the Arctic Sea that the polar bears are inhabiting, of seal that they're feeding on. Let's see, but yeah, this is a bit far off. Also, when it comes to canines, Macarius did not have very long canines compared to its skull size, unlike the later Smilodon, as well as even Homotherium, so another genus of saber tooth. Um, Also, saber-toothed cats or the macharodontids, including Smilodon and Macarius, are not closely related to tigers, so Panthera tigris. So, like the African lion is more closely related to the tiger than it, but the closest relative today to the tiger is actually the snow leopard, which is relatively odd. Snow leopards are not closely related to the other different species of in quote leopards of Africa, other parts of Asia, and it's also a bit distantly related to the jaguar. So this animal was likely feeding on like different.
I like that the canines in this are not as large as some of the other ones.
Well, yeah. Also, when it comes to the gums, I think it's like very realistic looking. Also, when it comes to even the eye structure, like very close attention to where the eye sockets would have been placed. Smaller ears too. In fact, they almost gave it like a sort of something between like a caracal to an extent and maybe even a bobcat in terms of the overall ear structure. Okay, let's check back on the deer. We're gonna bring up more Ice Age animals. Okay, where were we? Johnny Nazarbek, the park senior researcher, said the program has significantly expanded the population over the past 2 decades. Around 50 Bukhara deer are kept under special care and receive daily feeding. Every 2 years, part of the growing population is released into the wild. Okay, so they are still breeding them. I mean, I would hope so, considering or assume so. They have still a very small population. You can have where a disease can just take these guys out. Um, but as well, massive overhunting by I'm gonna leave people out of this, just the other carnivores themselves. During winter, additional feed is also provided to animals living in natural conditions. The park includes oh yeah, I will just say that he looks very proud. Yeah. Seems like a newly born fawn. Guessing it was some part of like maybe late May or early June that this fawn was born. I think by the size of the Bukhara deer, which I'm guessing, I don't know their approximate size, but could be somewhere between 250 to 350 pounds, or pushing some around 120 to maybe like 170 kilograms. Okay, so the park includes two guy forests. I wonder if it's referring to taiga along the Saur, Daria, and Aris rivers, as well as the Boraldi mountain range. Established to preserve rare endemic species and restore ecosystems, the protected area now covers nearly 120,000 hectares, or pushing some around 240,000 acres. Also, endemic means that so there's native and endemic. A lot of times, some will confuse the two words. Native means it can like, it evolved in a specific area or established a very beneficial niche to ecosystems in a wide variety of different places. Endemic means it's only found in a specific area and nowhere else. Okay, so there's a stork. So in 2012, the Arai Simboraldai and Turkestan Forestry and Wildlife Protection institutions were merged into the current park structure. According to Begzat Kalbayev, an entomologist at the Park Science Information and Monitoring Department, the territory is home to 309 bird species. Oh, that's a good amount. More than half of all bird species recorded in Kazakhstan. The park also contains 715 invertebrate species. That's really good to hear. So, I believe including like crustaceans, so such as like crawfish, but I don't know if any crayfish, crawfish, yabbies are native to Kazakhstan. I would assume so. 59 mammal species and 992 plant species. Okay, that's good to hear. The question is, how many of these animals are invasive to the area? But it could be just specifically native that's referring to. Okay, now let's step back in time. Woolly mammoth. Now, it did inhabit Kazakhstan during the Ice Age. So this was well over 300,000 years ago, but they're not very common in the area. Also, when it comes to certain other carnivores, such
Wait, were there
as
different types of woolly mammoths?
there might have been different subspecies, but not including the dwarf woolly mammoths, there seems to be just one specific species, Mammothus primigenus. When it comes to the woolly mammoths over in Kazakhstan, they're quite rare. There are, I believe, there's cave art indicating that they were present in the region during the Ice Age, and also that's a mastodon.
Oh,
When
sorry.
it comes to the American mastodon, like there have been mastodons that have been discovered over in Asia, but I don't believe of the American mastodon species. So
Oh, wait, they're still
Mastodon
alive.
americanus.
It's they
Um,
stuck him in a room.
yeah. Okay, so the background, the reason why it's quite bare, it's supposed to represent the mammoth steppe. So a major ecosystem that included or covered wide varieties of different parts of Europe, Asia, North America, during the Pleistocene and possibly the late Pliocene epoch. And this region, in many cases, was devoid of trees. It did not contain soils that trees could survive in. You might have seen them maybe on the fringes of the ecosystem, but that would be it. So there have been a couple of woolly mammoth specimens that have been discovered over in Kazakhstan. So you have one where it seems to be the age of the animal was somewhere around 40 to 50 years. So this is indicating that, or it's more evidence that woolly mammoths were living for about as long as today's bush or even Asian elephants.
Side Eye said, "It's Snuffy."
Yeah, definitely is. Also, when it comes to the mammoth steppe in general, if you want to talk about snow, depending on where you were, it was um, it did exceed quite frigid temperatures, but it didn't necessarily, in some cases, have like a drastic amount of snow compared to like certain instances with like tundra, like the moist tundra that we know of today in different parts of Russia, northern Scandinavia, Finland, and even like Alaska and Canada. So, oh yeah, this is one of the mammoth mummies that was discovered over in Siberia in Russia, and I believe it was only about like maybe a month when it died, and possibly due to either too frigid of a temperature, maybe also combined with a lack of milk as well. Considering kind of like when you look at polar bears, considering polar bear fat is when it comes to terrestrial mammals, some of the has some of the highest concentrations of fat. It's around 30% fat. And it seems to be a similar case with the mammals, pushing between 30, I mean, the mammoths, woolly mammoths specifically. I don't know about steppe mammoths, but somewhere around 30 to 35% fat
John says
was
hi.
woolly mammoth milk. Hello, fellow theropod, dinosaur. So when it comes to, oh yeah, this is also a separate woolly mammoth individual. This is not the same mummy as the other. But when it comes to, I also think it was slightly older when it perished. What was another thing? Specifically, oh, think we were just talking about them being in Kazakhstan. There was another individual that was discovered, but I think it was somewhere around, like, I'm not sure if we know the age of the animal, but I think it was about 40,000 years old when it died. So towards the last 30,000 years of the Ice Age. And this animal, also, when it comes to Eurasian cave lions, there are fragmentary remains of Eurasian cave lions existing over in Kazakhstan, but we don't have any complete specimens. We do have evidence, I think, even a bit more so than the mammoth, for them occurring over in cave art. So I guess comes to mammoths, like we do have actual specimens. It's just the cave lions more based on just possibly of maybe Neanderthal or certain other type of hominids painting depictions. There was also another species of bison that was existing over in Kazakhstan at this point that we have discovered, and it seems to be in close morphology to the European bison, um, despite being completely different species.
I've always wondered, is the reason that it wouldn't even be possible to find an actual frozen dinosaur is because it would just degrade too much?
I think that's possible. Well, that too. It would be extremely degraded, even if the permafrost stayed intact for, let's say, 66 million years. I think, yes, there's only so well the permafrost can preserve the DNA. You also have it where permafrost wasn't really existing during the time of the dinosaurs. I might have to check up on that, but there weren't any instances where it could become frozen in the type of instance like the different species of mammals during the Pleistocene or the Ice Age.
Did
Um,
everything melt at some point?
um, Technically, no. You do have it where there are different glaciers even today that've been around since the Pleistocene. I don't know when it's specific. Actually, let me rephrase that. I could be a bit off. There actually might have been an instance where around 8 to 9,000 years ago, pretty much all of the ice did melt, and then there was some certain cooling events that brought certain glaciers back. And also helped with changing the different ecosystems, especially of different parts of Asia, Europe, and North America. Less so when it comes to Africa, Australia, South America, and possibly even Antarctica. But I'll need to check up on that. Forgot what was the original question.
It was about whether dinosaurs could have been frozen, and that's why we can't find them. If this thing looks like this already, what would an actual something from
Well, you would still have the preserved skin intact, but if you're talking about having it where there's DNA, like, that you could use to technically make a hybrid, of the animal, um, it probably, would simply be too degraded, but you also asked, if everything melted, at least in the Northern Hemisphere, possibly so.
the whole idea of pulling blood out of a mosquito in amber is absolutely.
Yeah, that is definitely not possible, at least with blood that has intact DNA. You probably could pull out blood of, the well, definitely from amber, I'm not entirely sure. I think it is possible, though.
Would the amber soak through the mosquito?
Um, I need to check up on that. I don't know. But when it comes to woolly mammoths, they aren't very common. What was another thing? Oh, cave bears. We also have evidence for cave bears existing over in Eurasia. And we've even found the short-horned Elasmotherium rhino over in Kazakhstan, as well as his relative, the two-horned Coelodontia, with a massive horn structure. But yeah, this individual, he's from adjacent to Russia.
Was
So,
Antarctica always at the South Pole?
and no, there were actually different points, especially as you head back towards the earlier Cenozoic era, the different parts of even the Mesozoic, where it was further north, and also partially why you had it where It's a bit of a warmer climate, but it still did experience cooling events where it would have snowed, not necessarily forming glaciers, but even during the Triassic period 210 million years ago. So possibly having dinosaurs existing where it was a bit cooler down in Antarctica.
The second part was, could it be the case that the continentals had a dinosaur population before the plate tectonic reclode? Yeah. Okay, you just answered it.
Okay. Um, let's head back to the deer and see what else is going
Oh, but then maybe we'll find frozen dinos there one day.
on. Well, the problem is that there doesn't seem to be any instances during the Mesozoic where they would have been able to have been preserved. Well, okay. I think I was mixing your question with the DNA. Um, yeah, I think it's possible that we might be able to find more. Well, wait a second. We have found dinosaurs in Antarctica, if that's what you're asking. Um, and preserved skin fragments. Um, I need to double check on that. We might have found some with the theropod Cryolophosaurus, which is one of the most renowned species of dinosaurs to come from Antarctica around 195 million years ago.
Wait, how many dinosaurs have we found from Antarctica?
Um,
Not individuals, but
yeah, overall, because we have found different species from the Jurassic as well as the Cretaceous. Well, we've also found different species of marine reptiles as well. Now, those are sauropodians, reptiles that evolved from a completely different lineage of reptiliae. Whereas,
but I meant, what have we found there?
we found a fragmented specimen of a hadrosaur from the 1970s. It's still a debate as to what specifically it could be. We have found an ankylosaur. We, I believe, have also found we found different species of prosauropods from the early Jurassic, and then including the theropod Cryolophosaurus. We found a species of dromaeosaur or raptor called something berator. It's not hitting me at the moment, but it does not have a distinct sickle claw that you would find in pretty much all the other different species of dromaeosaur. It's a very distinct species. It has a very, like, even dromaeosaurus like jaw structure, but it doesn't have that sickle claw. We have found a smaller species of ornithopod that looks a bit different, but a bit more similar to the species that was recently discovered here in the southern United States. Well, over in the southern United States. Um, let's see who else. But prosauropods are definitely not uncommon. I don't know of any earlier ornithopods from like the early. Oh wait, yeah, there were. Possibly. Now here's the thing: you had it where Australia and Antarctica were pretty much connected to each other back in the early Cretaceous, especially if you're referring to 130. I'd say between 104 to 135 million years ago during the Cretaceous. And you had it where likely different species of elasmarian iguanodontids, such as Metabarosaurus and Lianosaura, were migrating into the continent as well, and possibly back into Australia. You also had it where large temnospondyl amphibians, some of the last to exist, were existing in the region too. So pushing like around 135 pounds or about 60, 65 kilograms. Who else? Megaraptorids. So the larger Coelurosaurs in the area might have inhabited Antarctica too. Who else? There were different species of flying pterosaurs as well. You probably even had it where there were different species of sauropod dinosaurs during the early Cretaceous that were migrating back down to Antarctica that we find over in Australia, like possibly even like Diamantinosaurus or Australotitan. Um, it doesn't seem to be the case with different species of abelisaurs that evolved during the Cretaceous. I'm trying to think. Like back in the Triassic, you might have had it where different species of Triassic theropods, like even the Herrerasaurs, might have made it down to Antarctica. And even, well, some lineage of theropods, like neotheropods or avitheropods, would have had to. Either else, you wouldn't have had animals like Cryolophosaurus roaming the area. The same thing for the ancestors to the prosauropods of the Jurassic. You could also have had different species of crocodilomorphs, like the Rauisuchians related to Postosuchus, inhabiting Antarctica. I just don't know of any specific species. So we have found a wide variety of different dinosaurs and closely related or distantly related lineages in the area. We don't have any allosaurs or tyrannosaurs, at least that I know of, that we have discovered from that region. Well, it doesn't seem that Tyrannosaurus or the Tyrannosaurid lineage of dinosaurs even crossed into Australia, Africa, or even South America. The allosaurs, it's possible, but I don't know um, of that occurring. Definitely have Silorosaurs like the Megaraptorids. Um, that's all I can think of at the moment.
Oh, is that all?
Yeah, there's probably more dinosaurs I didn't mention that have been found there or had the ability to migrate in the region.
That was sarcasm.
Yeah, no, I know. Just I might have said that earlier too. Okay, so among the animals found in the park are Karatu argali sheep, roe deer, wild boars, wolves, jackals, corsock foxes, stone martens, basically woodchucks, groundhogs, and badgers, just a different subspecies. The badger in this area is probably a different species compared to what you would find over in Thailand or Europe, North America. Researchers also occasionally record wild sightings of the Tien Shan brown bear, the Burldeye branch. Okay, so bears, brown bears, grizzly bears, not grizzly, um,
Wait,
are
are you that's a different bear?
so when you're using the word grizzly, which is Grzzly, that's referring to specifically the American interior brown bear subspecies. So it's just referring to like a grayish, somewhat darkish type of um, coloring to it. Grizzly, which is Grisly, um, is well also grizzly, I believe, is derived from a Latin word, but gristly refers to it means intimidating or to spread fear, and it's a Proto-Germanic when it comes to the language origin. So that can refer to any brown bear on Earth. So yes, calling it a grizzly bear is fine.
Okay, Sinai said, martens are like weasels. Question.
Martins. Oh, martins. I confused it with marmot. You're right. Okay, marmots are the woodchucks or groundhogs. The martins are the species of boreal weasels. Well, occasionally that will hunt smaller. Let's bring up a martin. Okay, yeah, I was wrong on that. Um, yeah, they feed on they're also like the stoats, which are closely related to them. They are members of the Mustelidae lineage of mammals, so they are also more closely related to carnivores such as hyenas. There he is. Yeah, these guys, they're like terrestrial and arboreal to an extent. So they'll hunt after smaller voles, they'll go after squirrels, smaller species of birds. Trying to think. Possibly like even younger um raccoons, depending on where they are in certain instances. That's a very peculiar martin.
Yeah, I thought something off about it to me.
I wonder if it's a different species. I'm just not familiar with this. It might be an Asian species.
Well, it looks like it wants its picture taken, and so does this one.
Yeah. Yeah, especially these guys. So you can find them in different parts of like Canada, different areas of Europe, Northern Asia, especially like the more boreal forests, even deciduous forests as well.
This one's yellow too, or has yellow on him.
Um, yeah, I think he also seems to be a somewhat younger individual. He could be like a different subspecies too.
Oh, there's a lot of them with yellow.
I wonder if he's one of the ones from Asia. It is interesting because the martins, in some instances, have well, it
This one's neat.
says American martin, but yeah, I think it's an Asian, possibly an Asian species, yellow-throated martin. It is interesting when you're looking at certain species of like squirrels over in Asia, which are very different from like squirrels in North America, Europe. They tend to have quite a bit of coloring on them, in many cases similar to this. But this it's almost like the yellow throated or yellow colored. mongoose over in Africa. Okay, let's head back to the deer.
Real quick, Cyanide said grizzly, Grisly, is the way to spell grizzly in the UK.
Oh, it is? That's interesting considering, like, grizzly, like, has a distinct, meaning, but you could have had it where, like, as the language tree was evolving or, progressing, that modern I guess, East Anglia English or one of the close related dialects, wherever you're from in, England. Wait a second. Never mind. The black bear situation confused me. I'm like, unless one escaped from like a zoo or a rescue center, I don't know how you came into contact with one of them over there, but or he just decided to play the never mind.
Identify as a Carnotaurus said hello.
Oh yeah, hey theropod. Where was I getting with that? Oh, yeah, I'm guessing it's one of those instances in the language trees where it just happened to put it as an English word. Okay, so it's because it derived from Latin, but it's like the modern um word for that distinct description, but it still only refers to the grayish sort of brown bear, and specifically from if we're talking taxonomically or within the family tree from the interior of North America. But wait a second. Is he talking about the Z or he said the S1 was what they used in the UK. Oh, okay. You still use the traditional term. Salute.
Christine Wiggs
Okay.
said hello. Hi.
I just appreciate it when it's um theropod. Hello. Let's see. Um okay, so back to this. I confused the two words. Okay, so let's see. According to Nazarbic, researchers use also there's 350 employees working in the park. Wow. Including scientists and monitoring specialists. That's actually quite a bit. According to Nazarbic, researchers use drones and camera traps among other modern technologies to monitor wildlife and vegetation.
Hold on. I got to break in again. Identify as Carnotaurus said, what do you think Allosaurus sounded like?
Um yeah, I haven't taken a look into like or very in depth when it comes to the vocal cords of possibly this animal had, but I would assume he at least rumbled like with what you find in different crocodilians of today. And I really don't want to get into the whole he cooed like a dove or a pigeon because it just really ruins the, aspect of the animal. But I understand we have to, find what realistically occurred. But I think he at least rumbled like something similar to a saltwater crocodile or an American crocodile. Um,
Cyanide said, Bwaki, Bwaki.
oh yeah, I'm trying to think. Was that a guinea fowl or Now, here's the thing. Emu, like the drum beat sound effect that an emu creates, I think that would be quite interesting, especially like in different breeding seasons, depending on what theropod. You can even say maybe herbivore, but focusing on the theropods. And you mentioned Allosaurus. Um, Probably might have occurred. There might have been like even a throat like extended, like the sac inflation.
But it would just be much louder because of the size.
Likely, or there could be an instance where you couldn't hear it because these animals, many of them had the ability to hear in low frequency sound like modern day elephants. So, definitely, yeah, the rumbling. I'm trying to think of what else, like the emu drumming. I mean, maybe even certain rumbling, like similar to elephants, but I'm also thinking of like the invisible rumbles that we don't hear.
Okay, Cyanide, I can't even pronounce that or make that sound. Guagalaga, guagalaga.
Okay. The turkeys. Or maybe certain prairie chickens or grouses over in North America. Um, yeah, I think that's certainly possible with different species of theropods, especially like maybe certain members of the oviraptor lineage, certain types of maybe Metrocanthosaurs from the early Cretaceous and the late Jurassic. That certainly is possible. Possibly even in like the growth stages as these animals age, they might have made similar sound effects like to these birds just maybe at a larger volume. Um, yeah, I think that's all I can say about that specific type of, I guess, vocalization. So, according to okay, so one state inspector is assigned for every 1,000 hectares of protected territory. Wow, or 2,000 acres. The park also serves as a growing ecotourism destination. The public can stay in wooden guest houses and explore 8 tourist routes developed along the Sar Daria River and the Borodai Mountains. According to park officials, tourist activity increases significantly during weekends and holidays when additional supervision measures are introduced. Interesting. I guess when it comes to places like Kazakhstan, it doesn't hit you that you can actually have people coming here to take a hike and, um,
Wait, you don't think people from Kazakhstan can travel?
I, well, I think also how, at least, I picture it to an extent, is probably some other people, kind of like Mongolia, and you're just imagining them that they're out in their own pieces of land. Now, granted, there's better looking areas too, but then you forget that these areas have cities, um, which is interesting because cities like from different parts of sub-Saharan Africa, and no, I'm not just referring to South Africa, Botswana, Namibia, Kenya or Tanzania, but like Nigeria, Senegal, even the Democratic Republic of the Congo. I'm like cities will actually, um, or certain towns will actually appear in my head, um, more readily than compared to certain areas of Asia, especially Central Asia.
Okay, wait a minute. We got another one. Identifies Carnotaur said, "Do you think Seraphonix, am I saying that right?
Saurophagonex.
Yes. Is a valid genus or another allosaur species?"
Well, it sounds like, and this came out a couple years back, that it could be another species of sauropod. And yeah, how did they mix it up with the theropod is a big question. I also need to review like what specific bones they found in Saurophagonex too. But it still sounds like Torvosaurus and Allosaurus hold. Well, okay, if you're referring to Allosauroideae, Allosaurus still holds the title for the largest allosaurs during the late Jurassic. Um, but it seems like it's some species of sauropod.
Okay, now Cyanide said, "I had a dream one time that there's a I was where this town I was in got attacked by a bunch of dinosaurs. It was pretty scary."
Um,
Well, that depends what kind of dinosaurs they were.
oh, even you have to be careful with like sauropods or ceratopsian, little guys like Compsognathus
Well,
or
that's what I was thinking.
oh, well, I mean, yeah, those guys, we don't have any evidence for like Compsognathus hunting in packs. They seem to be singular remains coming in from late Jurassic Germany and France because there were two different species.
So unlike Jurassic Park 2?
Yeah, I mean, it's okay. There came to a point where that was too exaggerated. It was as if they did hunt in packs, they all congregated together and said, "We need to fight off this um the
Guy
people."
electrocuting us?
Oh yeah, that too. Um
Or eat the girl?
yeah, that was interesting. But yeah, it likely was just a singular or solitary hunter. I mean, looking at the size of the animal, certainly it's possible, but it might have had a similar niche to like the American marten does. So probably feeding on smaller mammals of the time, and as well the smaller species of dinosaurs, like even the earlier birds. It nearly coexisted with Archaeopteryx, so it's very possible that early members of like the Paravessa lineage of theropod dinosaurs it might have hunted maybe smaller ornithopods or pterosaurs at that point. Also, probably going after smaller amphibians and reptiles. Okay, so is there anything else?
Who wins 1,000 copies or 7 billion dodos?
Dodos. Oh, it isn't even a question. 7 billion? Y- you would probably like need maybe uh what I'd say a third to the amount of Compsognathus that there are. I mean, even with the largest species Compsognathus, dodos were quite intelligent. Like they aren't as dumb. Now, maybe you're being sarcastic to an extent. I mean, obviously you said 7 billion dodos, but
Maybe it was an Ice Age joke?
yeah, okay, those guys had like It was like certain dodos actually looked smart, and then the rest of their lineage didn't make any sense. But what am I trying to think of? Yeah, the dodos would easily just tear apart the Compsognathus. The Compsognathus wouldn't stand a chance. It's a very delicately built species of theropod, and also dodos were rather compact. It also does seem that these animals were not feeding on any animal protein. I'm not sure if there were any depictions of them like going after maybe smaller mammals. There just seems to be evidence from the islands adjacent to Madagascar, from like 1700s, that these animals were just feeding on different species of fruit, maybe seeds. So they were pretty much herbivorous.
Yeah, but we know what happens when herbivores get annoyed.
Oh yeah, I could see these guys being quite aggressive. The question is, like before, I'm assuming this separation, like from the mainland, like what came before the dodo, I don't know. Um,
Compy versus shotgun.
um, yeah, that's yeah. It wouldn't take much to take out a Compsognathus, but I'm trying to think. There were certain dinosaurs that Compsognathus, because I'm making out like he's just there's nothing he could fight. There were certain smaller species that he could probably take on, like certain members of the Microraptorids, um, small dromaeosaurs, possibly even I don't know, even this tiny ceratopsian's wing. Like, maybe there were some small ceratopsians, just a couple that were like 4 to 8 pounds, or somewhere between 2 to 3 kilograms. Compsognathus could probably take it on.
I identify as a Carnotaur, said hi again.
Hello, a belly sword. Okay, let's head back again to the Mesozoic. Should we? Okay, all right. Okay. So from Sci News, and yes, I'm glad that we're having that continuing increase in the Bukar deer population. New research sheds light on enigmatic Jurassic crocodile relatives. In a study published in the journal Papers in Paleontology, paleontologists from the State Museum of Natural History, Stuttgart, investigated growth rates of Macrospondylus balensis. It is interesting. So they named a species of Thaladdosuchian crocodilomorphs or pseudosuchians, somewhat after like a prosauropod, though they're not closely related. But like I said, with like the species name Mongoliensis or Rex, I think there's certain others. They have been used for a wide variety of different animals. Mongoliensis tends to be just used for prehistoric mammals, reptiles, and dinosaurs from Mongolia specifically. Anyway, referring to this specific.
I gotta break in again. Okay, Sinai said, what- are there any prehistoric canids smaller than what we have today, aside from domesticated dogs?
Oh well, oh yeah, it's true. I was thinking, well, we have pretty small species of fox. I
Oh,
think the
prehistoric
fennec,
ones.
yeah, the fennec fox. I think being somewhere around 2 to 4 pounds, or about a couple kilograms. It's a.
Well, the fennec fox is prehistoric?
I believe it was existing back in the Pleistocene epoch or the Ice Age, and also at a time when the northern Africa, when it mean what I mean by or what it means by lush is a bit closer to certain areas of sub-Saharan Africa of today. But I'm trying to think. Earlier foxes, Canidae, like the overall family, first evolved somewhere between 30 to 32 million years ago during the early Oligocene epoch. But when it comes to some of the earliest species, I do not know. I would assume they would be the size of the fennec fox, if not smaller. I wouldn't be surprised if they weighed some around a pound or two. But even then, it would probably make sense for more primitive ancestors, but I don't know. What is interesting is about that time, it's also around the same time that Filiforma or the cat family evolved, and as well, the family that would um, evolve into true crocodiles is also when it first evolved too.
Wait. Okay, so I identify as a carnivore said Compy versus an Aquilops. Aquil
Quillops.
yeah.
Can you pull up? Can you pull up Quillops? It's not hitting me at the moment. I think he's okay. Yep, it's him. All right. I'd vote on Aquilops. The beak. He also has elongated frill, though it might be that specific small species of ceratopsian I was thinking of. Yeah, the Compsognathus could, but he's going to have a really hard time.
What was the
And
weight of a Compy?
Compsognathus maybe a pound or two. He is very lightly built,
So this thing is like twice the size of it already.
or one,
3
two,
times the size.
yeah, about a kilogram. Yeah. Is it specifically like that 15 or 20 pound?
No, it's 3.3
3.3
pounds.
pounds. Oh, that. Okay, so that is like one of the smallest, if not the smallest species of ceratopsid. Um, yeah, I would still the Aquilops, just simply its beak. It's going to be probably worse than like the Protoceratops velociraptor incident in Mongolia. Compsognathus is just not meant for taking on any armored animals. Um, just simply, smaller reptiles, amphibians, maybe certain dinosaur hatchlings, but even um, like certain newly born dinosaurs, like the stegosaurs, might be a bit of a hassle. But you could also have a stegosaur, parents are protecting it. But yes, Equilops. So back to this Thalattosuchian, a species of teleosauroid crocodiliform from the Jurassic of Europe. So the telesaurs and the metrorhynchids are two groups or two subfamilies of reptiles that derive from the Thalattosuchians. And here's one of them. What is this? Like, could be Steniosaurus. It's one of the more renowned. No, it's a Macrospondylus balensis. Steniosaurus is one of the more renowned species of Thalattosuchians or Telerosaurs. And it looks more similar to the youngster in this instance. A very narrow um, body structure. Just when it comes to the overall morphology, it's not exactly like a Garrel. It does have a somewhat more robust jaw structure compared to a Garrel of today. So the crocodilum, crocodilians that you find over in India and I believe part of Australia, but I could be confusing that with the freshwater crocodile.
Identify as a Carnotaurus said, "What was the smallest ankylosaur?"
Um, okay, specifically when it comes to those species, trying to remember. Well, okay, you're referring to Ankylosauridae. Think of the ankylosauromorphs in general, which would include nodosaurs. That specific species, specific genus name is not hitting me at the moment, but we have found species like less than 12 to 11 feet in length. They're pushing like around 3.8 meters.
How many types were there?
We have found somewhere between, I think 25 to 30 different species of Ankylosauridae. So, and then, yeah, it's not including the nodosaurs themselves. Let's head back to the article. So, this specific, like, Teleosaur thalattosuchian was mostly a fish eater, probably went after different species of, um, ammonites as well. So, the cephalopods distantly related to squids in the ocean. So Macrospondylus balensis lived in what is now Europe during the early Jurassic epoch between 183 and 182 million years ago. Oh, whoa. Okay, so that's earlier in the Jurassic. Like a wide variety of different members of Teleosauridae we find like in the 155 to 175 million year realm. This is a bit earlier. The reptile's length was estimated at 5.5 meters, making it the largest known early Jurassic crocodilomorph. Yeah, it's massive for the time. And yes, these specific Thalattosuchians, they are derived from the same ancestors or crocodilomorph or pseudosuchian ancestors that today's crocodilians also derive from, as well as pretty much all the other crocodilomorphs that would have inhabited the Mesozoic era or the time of the dinosaurs, and then to the Cenozoic too, time of mammals. Also known as Steniosaurus balensis. Oh, did they just rename it? This species is particularly abundant in the Posundeinschiefer formation of Posidonia shale of southwestern Germany. Um, so this does make sense. You do have it where we find also a wide variety of different species of Metriorhynchids or Thalattosuchians in general from southern Germany, France, actually Steniosaurus. Gosh, there's another species. It's not hitting me. Machimosaurus, possibly. Like we find in Switzerland, Tunisia. Tunisia is North Africa. North Africa. Belgium, Spain, possibly northern Italy. It is quite abundant over in central Western Europe.
Identify as Carnotaurus said, "It fascinates me at how old life is."
Um, I actually find it surprising at how young it is too. Like just to a certain extent, like and well, in some instances, like would assume that it took a much longer time for all these animals to evolve. But then there are many instances in evolution where it's quite rapid and also random too. So, but yeah, I mean, still 530 million years is not exactly a small amount of time. And like even the mammals first evolved, it seems probably somewhere around 230 to 235 million years ago, around the same time as the first dinosaurs.
Wait, when did the proto mammals evolve?
Proto mammals seem to have evolved maybe somewhere around 290 to 300 million years ago. So during the very beginning of the Permian period.
Wait, then what are they called? What
Um,
came before dinosaurs?
Earlier archosauromorphs.
Okay, when did they come?
They seem to have appeared like right after the Permian mass extinction and then the Triassic beginning around 250 to 252 million years ago, somewhere around there.
So they weren't much before the dinosaurs.
Yeah, I guess you could say the proto dinosaurs to an extent. Um, yeah, they hadn't evolved too long beforehand. I mean, it's still technically not a long period of time. I
I
mean, short period.
identify as Carnotaurus said, "I just subscribed."
Well, really appreciate that. And fellow Archosaur. So let's see. Let's bring up another species of dinosaur. The Lusotitan. So Lusotitan. Okay, so ranging from or moving from the ocean. Um, this animal also inhabited Europe, but much later into the Jurassic.
Okay, I just find this funny.
Oh yeah, this guy. This is from the 2025 Walking with Dinosaurs series, which
Wait. Oh, hold on.
okay. Um
It says it's a lucid.
okay, so yeah, this Lusotitan, it looks like it's been given the skull structure of a diplodocid. Lusotitan is a member of the Brachiosauridae lineage of sauropod dinosaurs, or the Macroninian sauropods. Also, when it comes to that distinct head crest, I don't. Well, okay, there technically would have been a somewhat brachiosaur like um topical head structure on the like upper part of the upper maxilla.
Hold on.
Well, I guess right behind the upper maxilla. It's more of like the front jaw, like the front upper jaw that would be located at. This is, I believe, Denerosaurus. So this is from the 2013 documentary Dinosaur Revolution.
I'll drop it.
It did coexist with Lusotitan. That is a member of the diplodocid lineage of dinosaurs. So it is a bit more, it probably had more like Apatosaurus physique to it. Not too distantly related, but Apatosaurus was over in Wyoming, Colorado, Utah, in the United States. Denerosaurus was over in Portugal. So was Lusotitan. So this animal, probably when it comes to the tail structure, would be a little robust. It seems a bit uneven with the pelvic region.
Hold on.
Um,
I defines Carnotaurus said T Rex with a capital T or T Rex with a lowercase t.
T Rex with a capital T. Um, so when referring to Titan, which is related to Brachiosaurus, Giraffatitan, the mysterious Ultrasaurus. I'll have to go back over him. But this animal was pushing somewhere around 70 to 75 feet in length, or pushing somewhere around 20 to 22 meters, and probably weighed 30 to 35 tons, possibly even pushing to the 40-ton realm, like with Brachiosaurus. It seems with Giraffatitan was slightly larger than even Brachiosaurus. Like the upper weight estimate is possibly somewhere around 54 tons. Brachiosaurus Ultrox reaches somewhere around 51 tons at the upper limit. So with Titan, it was probably pushing maybe around the 40-ish ton region. So likely just feeding on different species of conifers. Um, were probably its primary food source. And it did have to be concerned about like the Torvosaurus, European Torvosaurus species that inhabited the area, as well as Allosaurus too. There were also different species of stegosaurs that coexisted with this sauropod, um, and smaller theropods. I forgot what the specific species was.
Okay, this picture's a little strange because it has 2 separate look. Why does it look like they're having a conversation?
Because it seemed that way throughout the whole documentary with many of the predator prey relationships.
What is this?
Um, I think they're supposed to be
No,
Torvosaurus.
I meant what documentary?
It was the 2025 Walking with Dinosaurs um
Isn't that the
show.
one you said was
Yeah, not great. Um, yeah, the when it comes to also the Torvosaurs, they're okay. I think they're a bit stiff, or also when it comes to the tail. But Torvosaurus was one of the species, probably the largest species of megalosaur that inhabited the region. So it was likely covering southern Europe at this point, along with Titan. And this animal probably weighed somewhere around 3 to 4 tons and pushing a length of around 30 feet or 9 meters.
but, I mean, why does it look like they're talking?
There's also something off with the way that leg is being raised with the Titan. But leaving that aside, yeah. First of all, two megalosaurs, also like two Torvosaurs specifically. Like, let's say it's a pair, so it's
That's
probably a
not what
male
it
and a
looks
female.
like. That looks like a totally different that is something
I
else.
mean, like the pattern, like the coloring.
Looks like it has a beak.
Oh, yeah, it looks a bit darker, kind of like what you would see maybe certain iguanodontid
Yeah, that's what I
depictions.
was thinking.
Yeah, well, first of all, they're going to be taking on much smaller game, like not going after a full-grown sauropod in this instance, probably going after younger ones or maybe a specific older individual that perished.
Maybe they're just asking for restaurant
I
directions.
mean, that is very weak. Yeah, they could be, but I would assume the Titan wouldn't really have the short-term memory ability to remember where to specifically obtain sauropod steak. It can remember, specifically where to obtain certain conifers or ferns. Take a left on or a right onto Lake Jurassic Boulevard. But besides that, I think it would be quite limited, or it just doesn't want to. So multiple. Well, maybe it could, because it would mean that it could set up like a bit of a symbiotic relationship, or just a, I guess, predator prey friendly communication or negotiation system with the Torvosaurs. So that way, those Torvosaurs wouldn't be hunting, like, for say, its own young. So maybe actually it could. And I'm a bit too criticizing on the brain structure. So multiple well preserved specimens have been found. So when referring now to the crocodilomorph, ranging in body size from less than 1 meter to see 5 meters.
Going Z Great says underrated channel. Keep growing, King.
Um, well, thank you very much, fellow theropod. So let's see. About 3.3 feet to probably around 17 feet. Said lead author Dr. Michela Johnson and her colleagues from the State Museum of Natural History, Stuttgart. This massive range in size makes Macrospondylus balensis an ideal species for growth rate studies. In the study, the researchers performed statistical analyses on 16 juvenile, 7 subadult, and 39 adult specimens of Macrospondylus balensis from the Poseidon-Schiefer formation. Wow, that's I mean, depending on the species of crocodilomorph, and this isn't just referring to terrestrial species, or I guess, yeah, as well as like these marine species themselves. There have been a wide variety of different specimens that have been found consisting of different age groups. So, also giving us a huge glimpse into the growth stages of these animals and possibly what they're feeding on.
I identify as Carnotaur said Fire Channel.
Thank you very much, fellow Ceratosaurian. Bellysaurs are part of the Ceratosaurian lineage. Okay, so what else? Also, this part of Europe has a wide variety of different marine deposits that's in which we found all of these different plesiosaurs, pliosaurs, so the large, short-necked but large-skulled marine reptiles that lived in the region, and as well as these crocodilomorphs. Dinosaurs are not too common from this part of the Jurassic over in Western Central Europe. They become a bit more abundant as we head towards the early Cretaceous, like around 135 million years ago.
I identify as Carnotaurus. So can you talk about Carnotaurus?
I mean, sure, we're going to have to head to a different part of the Mesozoic era, but heading to the late Cretaceous around, oh, okay, CARN, about 69 to, actually, I'd say maybe 68 to 69 million years ago. Over in Argentina, as well as likely different parts of southern Brazil. You would have had this species of a bellysaur roaming the area. Now, the problem with this model is he's being given literally T Rex fingers, which he had basically like a very wide palm with 3 distinct fingers. And this animal was also had some of the largest horns compared to its skull structure of any species of a bellysaur. There were many different species of bellysaurs in general that they had like a small horn towards the back part of their skull, but just like located in the center. Really big question as to what that would have been used for. Probably to show off during the breeding season to help attract mates and intimidate other Abelisaurs, but that's more like something you would find on Abelisaurus, Majungasaurus. But Carnotaurus, it's very possible that this animal could have used its horns for combat. And I'm still going to need to take a bit of a deeper look into that specific morphology. And um, also, was I missing possibly a finger? A Carnotaurus might have had 4 fingers. Now, when it comes to this Abelisaur in general, it has very long hind limbs compared to its body size, compared to many other species of Abelisaurs, like even Majungasaurus, Tarascosaurus. They were a bit more stocky in overall like leg structure. So, let's see.
When were they from?
Oh, so this animal was existing over in Patagonia or Argentina, over in southern South America during the late Cretaceous period, around 68 million years ago, and also came into contact with different species of megaraptors, such as Mape. Okay, so this is from the movie Dinosaur, this specific model, the Carnotaurus. I think the head structure of this animal wasn't bad. Still though, you could say even like if you were to just make it its natural size, it would be a little too I think wide. I mean, the Abelisaurs were known for having somewhat whitish sort of skulls, but it's slightly too much. Also, I think the teeth could be a bit wider. They gave the Carnotaurus, I think, slightly too thin of teeth structure. I mean, I liked its overall character, but also when it comes to the arms, they're too long. Bellysaurs in general had some of the smallest arms compared to their body size. They were quite flexible, especially when it comes to Carnotaurus. Very flexible arms. But, yeah, this is a bit closer to like a T-Rex, sort of a length for the arms.
Is it just me or is it too thick?
That too. I should have mentioned the
Eh,
core. It
I
should
think it
be
just got a
much.
lot to eat.
Yeah, well, yeah, that too. Carnotaurus is much more gracile in terms of structure compared to many Abelisaurs, and especially this model. His tail would have been longer compared to his body size. Horns would probably be a bit longer.
And not look like something bit it.
Yeah, and the feet are a little too Carcharodontosaur like, and not like a Carnotaur belly sword. And it should not be walking on all fours. This animal had, in fact, the only carnivorous dinosaur that could probably come close to this, maybe putting its hand on the ground, would be Spinosaurus, one of the larger Spinosaur species in general. I'm not sure if I would stick the Megaraptors into that equation. I think those are ornithopods in the background, but I can barely tell. I mean, it's just blurry in general. I think the horns are okay. Um, the tail, I think, is a little too robust. Now, granted, we're seeing it at a certain angle. There doesn't seem to be any evidence for Carnotaurus containing feathers. I believe the skin fragments that we have discovered just seems to be basal, like s- skin, not texture, but there's another word. It's not hitting me. Oh, also the head structure on this model itself is a bit too almost like that of like a certain tyrannosaur species, or could possibly even be mixed with an allosaur to an extent. It's not very a belly sword like in general. I think that also the legs are a little too muscular.
Cyanide said modern birds build a wide variety of nest types. Is there any evidence dinosaurs did as well?
Oh yeah, we have a wide variety of different nest preservations coming in from the oviraptorids in different parts of China and Mongolia. Also, when it comes to different nesting sites, we have discovered of hadrosaurs over in Montana and as well, I think certain parts of Alberta, Canada, especially with Maiasaurus specifically, which inhabited Montana about 75 million years ago. 73 to 75 million years ago. So specifically like Oviraptor itself, certain other species, maybe of even the giant cynathid oviraptorids like Gigantoraptor. But you have it where it seems that the Oviraptorid was like made a bit of like a depression inside of the ground and then splayed its eggs around itself. And then there are, well, we have sauropod nests as well, especially coming from titanosaurs from the early late Cretaceous, possibly a bit earlier into the early Cretaceous as well, but especially over in Argentina, where it seems that the sauropods made also a bit of a depression into the ground and simply laid their eggs in that specific region. Theropods are much, well, okay, the larger theropods are very rare when it comes to nest preservations. Trying to think of another distinct. I believe we have also found certain nesting areas of ceratopsians too, but the small species like Psittacosaurus from 112 million years ago in China, and
What do you
maybe
mean by smaller?
Protoceratops. Well, this animal was not much more than maybe 40 to 65 pounds,
Oh
or
god,
somewhere between 16 kilograms to pushing around 29 to 30 kilograms.
that's definitely small.
Also, when it comes to The ankylosaurs we might have found a nesting site as well. But Carnotaurus specifically, I don't believe we have found any nests so far. Let's see, was there anything else? So this animal was also somewhere around 22 to 25 feet in length.
Wait, you're talking about Carnotaurs?
Yeah, back to Carnotaurus, or about 6.8 meters to, I think pushing around 7.8, 7.9 meter, or I guess 7.9 to 8 meters, and probably weighed somewhere around 2 to 2.5 tons, but still being quite athletic compared to a wide variety of other different species of Abelisaurs. Um, See, Abelisauridae also seems first evolved like the true species, some around 140 to 150 million years ago. The primitive members would evolve much earlier into the Jurassic, especially when they're deriving from Ceratosauridae.
Sindai asks, would they have used sticks and brush for insulation? Obviously, such structures would be unlikely to be preserved over time.
It definitely is possible that, well, like as in, I mean, if you're describing it like as if they would use it for trying to warm themselves, I guess you're asking,
Well,
like any
the
species.
ask was about the nesting, I'm assuming, because
Oh, yeah, that would make sense. I was thinking like human actually dressing themselves. Um, yeah, it does seem that way, at least with certain species that I think certain nests, possibly even with the hadrosaur specifically, that they were bringing over vegetation. I think what you mean is during the incubation process. Though in many cases, when it came to laying their eggs, even for the dinosaurs that lived in colder climates, they would have been laying them during the warmer periods of the year. So there would not really be a need for insulation. And there wouldn't be very much that they could do when it came to helping them, like either keep cooler or a bit warmer. Just simply be um, building the nest in a specific ecosystem, possibly in a slightly open area. Um, but when it comes to, yeah, the vegetation, that seems to be the case where they were bringing it over possibly to just simply feed their young. But the problem with that theory is that we have evidence of the youngsters feeding on vegetation, like specifically like young Myosaura. Yeah, feeding on vegetation is very high in protein, whereas the adults, like judging by chemical isotopes from their teeth, the adults are feeding on different species of vegetation that are high in fiber. So I don't believe that these hadrosaurs had the ability to do specific um, nutrient, mineral, and chemical compound testing on, okay, is this one like 20 grams of protein? And like stick in a scoop of fern protein powder as well. But um, yeah, so I guess I'm going to go back on the theory that they were bringing over vegetation to their young. Um, I don't know. I think it's still a big guess, but possibly not. What's another thing?
wait, possibly not what?
They, at least when it came to their eggs, they probably didn't have to bring over vegetation, at least to help keep them warm, considering,
Did they
um,
use them to hide them though?
they could, but I would, assume that the, theropods could sniff them out as well, or they can recognize that the animals or the herbivores in this instance are congregating in a specific area. They're creating, certain depressions in the ground. I think the hadrosaurs might have actually created somewhat mounds to, contain their eggs in. I would just assume the theropods would be smart enough to recognize, okay, it's egg laying season. We're going to have a bit of an extra protein supplement at this point, even fat supplement to an extent. Okay, let's head back to. Oh, I'm trying to think. Was there anything else with Carnotaurus? It probably hunted. Let's bring up. Yeah, he's okay, but he's got issues. Too stocky. This is a bit closer to like a Majungasaurus. I think it's like a Jurassic World model, Fallen Kingdom. This is better. But it was likely feeding on also smaller species of long-necked sauropods like the saltosaurs.
Well, this was the breeding season.
Yeah, I mean, probably was, or it's territorial conflict. Um, can't think of anything else, or possibly, let's say they mated or they were monogamous. You could possibly have it where there's another male intruding on their territory, and the other male is just fighting him off.
Identifies Carnotaur said, "Hi."
Hello, avitheropods. Um, let's see where else. Okay, so back to the crocodile.
Wait. Sinai said there must have been some type of strategy to protect the eggs and the or newborns, right? Didn't you say before that just depended on the type of dinosaur?
Yeah, but I think also you're probably concerned about rain hitting the eggs, specifically, like even when it comes to maybe like let's say if they created their nests in more like an open sort of a plain. If it was maybe towards even the dry season to some extent, or maybe the end of the dry season.
Did males and females share egg sitting duties? Well, did all dinosaurs even sit on their eggs?
It doesn't really look like any species of dinosaurs were sitting on their eggs. I mean, well, okay. If they weighed like maybe within the few pound range or kilogram,
What about the raptors?
if they weighed like let's say 8 to 10 pounds, might be pushing it or pushing around maybe 3 kilograms. But it's just that there is only so much weight that the eggs could handle. Now you have it where the weight's also distributed in different areas. Um,
Well, what about the stuff you were showing me where the
well, with the oviraptors, it seemed like the eggs were very close to the core of their body, but they were just simply surrounding it, and their feathers, of both their tail, their overall core as well, especially their arms, would have helped to, I guess, protect them to an extent from the elements. Um, but I'm trying to think with the larger dinosaurs too. Also, it'd be a bit of a mystery with even the Cetacosaurs, like the smaller ceratopsians.
wh-
I
what
think
about
that's
the
just
what about the Tyrannosaurs being parents?
yeah, the larger theropods, you could have had it where simply they were just resting adjacent to the nest, like a specific parent, and like maybe the other, is going out hunting or um, checking out some part of the territory. But that would probably be pretty much it. Now the question is like, how would it deal with rain? I'm not entirely sure. I would assume there would be like a specific because even eggs today, they have a type of protection on top of the shell that I need to go over what specifically it helps um, keep a buffer from. But I would assume that the different species of dinosaurs also would have this type of or similar protective coating on their eggs too. Um, but that's well, when it comes to when like you asked about whether the male or the female would take over or maybe like different females if it's like a matriarchal society. Um that's certainly possible, but I think in the most case with dinosaurs it would simply be over or just simply resting next to the eggs or feeding adjacent to it. Now, you would have to have quite a bit of vegetation, also rapidly growing vegetation too, depending on where they were. So, but that is still quite a big question as to like how specifically were they protecting and watching over the eggs while they were incubating, as well as also like the simple protective instances of the eggs, like from the weather.
Um, Identifies Carnotaurs Majung. Are you asking about Majungasaurus?
Um, maybe it sounds like it. Relative of
But
Majung is what he
but that's all it says, Majung.
did they well, Majung there's also Majungatholus, which is now it's more referred to as the Majungasaurus. I don't remember as to why it was called Majungatholus for a number of years. It is a valid genus. It inhabited Madagascar around the same time as Carnotaurus was roaming Argentina about 68 million years ago.
Wait, you said they're wait, you're saying they're two separate.
Majungatholus is the same thing as Majungasaurus. but I don't know how that's Majungatholus, the name, came to be. Um, okay, let's keep going. So they found that much of the body, so in these juvenile, subadult, and adult macrospondylus crocodiliforms, also it seems to be with these metriorhynchids or teleosaurs, they were completely um aquatic. Like, I guess outside of maybe occasionally going to lay their eggs on the beach, possibly completely aquatic. So they grew isometrically. This means that in Microspondylus balensis, many parts of the body show a near uniform growth in all age stages in relation to the total growth. This is very unusual in vertebrates. The most important finding of our study is that juvenile, subadult, and adult individuals show nearly equal growth in many areas of the body.
Okay, Sinai now said, or did some species simply lay their eggs and then leave, like modern sea turtles do?
That's very possible. The problem with saying that for crocodilomorphs, no, I'd say that for like the early relatives of turtles, especially at this point, the turtle lineage of reptiles or the yeah, that would be much more closely related to today's hadn't evolved yet.
Wait,
These were different lineage of sauropods.
Sinai, are you referring to the dinosaurs or these guys?
Oh, okay. So I went off track. Um, Pretty much all crocodilians today do take care of their young for an extended period. You can have it with American alligators, saltwater crocodiles, that they'll take care of their young for 2 to 3 years. So I think with the crocodilomorphs, they were looking after their young for a short period. Now the problem is it was showing it with a much older um, crocodilomorph youngster. I don't know. That is pretty small. Hmm. It could have been still with the mother. But, I guess after that short period, at least that's just my theory, they probably, would have separated.
Who's Ibers? Iber, uh, Ibers, uh, Iberaspinus.
Spinus.
Spinus?
That genus is not hitting me at the moment. Let's see. Oh, okay. So I don't know, do we wanna look that up?
Yeah, I'll do it. Cyanide said, "This has been an informative chat. Thanks for answering my questions. Have a good day."
You're very welcome. Thanks, and, have a good Mesozoic day too.
Hold on, I'm looking it up. Oh, it was misspelled. It's Iberaspinus spinus.
Sounds familiar.
Hold on.
At least when it comes to, the growth of this creature, Macrospondylus. So, it says this means that in Macrospondylus balensis, many parts of the body show a near uniform growth in all stages in relation to the total growth. This is very unusual in vertebrates. Hold on, all stages, age stages. Huh.
This is
Yeah, that is quite strange.
it's the clearest one I can pull.
Was this a new species of Spinosaur that was discovered? Because it seems to be a member of the. Okay, so we moved from the article to the genus that was mentioned, Iberospinus. Um,
From the I don't know what.
Possibly a North African or European species. So a baryonychid, definitely a large one. Seems to be similar in size to like baryonyx. Not definitely not having the elongated back vertebrae of Suchomimus.
Okay, I hate to use this and put this on you, but here.
Wait, hold on a second. I just want to scroll down a bit, see when it was see when I just going to see when it was discovered. And yep, it's new. Okay, I'm not familiar with this new species. There is not much I can say about this animal. But it looks very much like a baryonychid. So it's found in 2022. Um, Guessing it was. I think it said it was what found in. I don't remember. I'll bring him up though. Another time. So let's see, where were we? So the most important finding of our study is that juvenile, subadult, and adult individuals show nearly equal growth in many areas of the body. We also call this isometric growth, which is unusual in vertebrates. Yeah, this is very strange. But that's why Macrospondylus valensis juveniles look quite similar to adults. It is interesting. I wouldn't necessarily compare this to like certain early Tyrannosaur species, or not even earlier. Like there are even certain later species that youngsters and the adults had a similar, like physically, like just an overall morphology. Um. So, but yeah, I guess even then, when it comes to um many organisms in general, this is not very common. That's why Macrospondylus balensis juveniles look quite similar to adults. In many vertebrates, individual body parts such as the legs grow either faster or slower than other parts of the body. Our analyses show that the scaling of the limbs in Macrospondylus balensis is different from that of modern alligators and crocodiles, but comparable to that of the now critically endangered Indian gavial, or is this the Gerald it's referring to? Gavialis gangeticus. I wonder if it was historically, because apparently, when it comes to the breeding programs for increasing population of Indian Garrels, that they have been quite malnourished and skinny, and just overall very poor bone structure due to the poor care. But anyway, besides that, it's quite interesting that this is being compared with even a teleosaurid or a Thalattosuchian from the Jurassic. Why isometric growth was present in Macrospondylus balensis is still unclear. Our study raises new questions about the ecology and lifestyle of these animals, which we hope to clarify with further research. Okay, so yeah, I mean, I didn't realize we also found this many Macrospondylus as well. This is quite miraculous. Okay, so thanks for joining. And we're streaming on both Rumble, YouTube, and Kick. And from prehistoric to present, my name is Ethan. This is Creature Guy Live Daily News. Um, Happy International Ornithopod Day. And remember that nothing is better than all animals all the time.